Okay, so now we have all of our pivot table information in one sheet. We've got department, product, and total. We're going to be creating the pivot table and playing around with the data, seeing how it's presented, and look at the different settings for the different columns, which will make more sense when we go through it. Okay, so if you highlight A, B, and C by clicking column A, dragging it to column B and column C, basically just highlight all of A, B, and C. If we go to the Insert tab, now you can see on the left hand side there's pivot table, recommended pivot tables, and what we want is we want a pivot chart, which gives us the best of both worlds. It gives us the pivot table and it gives us a visual output like a graph. So if you push pivot chart, we can see that we get the settings for the pivot table. So we are selecting a table or range, which is what we've already selected. So pivot exclamation mark A to C just means all of A, all of B, and all of C. Okay, choose where you want to create the pivot chart. And we don't want to create it on a different sheet. Ideally, we want it on the same sheet. So if we click existing worksheet, so that goes blue. Location field will no longer be grayed out. So that we can now click on the spreadsheet as to where we want the pivot table. It doesn't really matter, so I'm just going to select F4 and click OK. Now as you can see, the chart and the table are just empty vessels basically at the minute, and until we play with our information here on the right hand side. So we've got department, product, and total, which relates to columns A, B, and C. But we have legend, values, axis, and filters. This allows us to play with the information, display it differently, and gives the management more choice, if you like. Okay, so if we go down to department, put this in the legend, we go to product, we go to values, on the axis, so the category, we'll click total. As you can see there, that's not really ideal, so I'll have it go in there, and I'll put total in there. That looks a little bit better. Now don't worry with your pivots, as long as the information's been selected properly, you can continuously play with these as we go through. Now as you can see on the left hand side, we've got the values of 0 to 10, which don't really tell us much. But rather than count, I think what we're looking for is sum. So if we left click the mouse on count of total, we get another range of settings to play around with the pivot table basically. So if you click on value field settings, now this is how you want that particular field's information to be displayed. So at the minute it's defaulted to count. We just want to click sum, so change it to sum and click OK. Now, as you can see on the left hand side, now we have a money value opposed to the count. Our pivot table in the background's changed. So you can see that consumables, there's £2,686 and 6 pence spent. Other, there was 1,300 permanent stock, photocopying, etc. Now this is just for the maths department. Okay, once we add English and science underneath this information here on the left hand side, you will get English and science as a drop down option. Also product, we can select only consumables, so it only shows us that information. So again, pivot tables are really useful for management because it gets all the information into one graph, but it allows to change it continuously. That's the end of this tutorial. Next tutorial we will look at importing maths, English and sciences information over.